Welcome back to another episode of the podcast, From the Depths of Darkness to the Light of Success. I am your host, Chris Swick, and on this podcast, we talk about mental health, addictions, recovery, eating disorders, ADHD, really anything anyone's afraid to talk about, we talk about it on the show. Let's make people afraid to not talk about these things and bring light to so many different avenues in life where people are suffering and stuff like that, and spread light and hope around all these different topics. I believe everyone's story is valuable at the end of the day. Does not matter what walk of life you come from. You're all welcome on this platform. But before we get started, please head over to that YouTube channel, hit that subscribe button, turn on the notification so you can get all of the different videos that are coming in with each and every episode. Head over to Spotify, Google Podcast, Apple Podcasts, and hit me up over on the Instagram page there at Depths of Dark Side to get all the different updates about my life, personal journey, the podcast, you name it, it's all over on there at Depths of Dark Side. No further ado, I'd love to introduce you to my next guest. I got Rob Decker. You want to take it away and let them know a little bit about you and what you're about, Rob? Please, thank you.
Absolutely. I'm going to come out the gate swinging, Chris. So I hope everybody's sitting down ready for this. So what I'll do is give you a little bit of background about me, the things that I've been through, what led me to what I do today. I love what you do first off, Chris, is people are afraid to talk about the things that you talk about on your show. And I think mental health is huge. And I think that a lot of people are afraid to talk about their challenges and their struggles and their traumas because of shame, the possibility of judgment. A little bit about me. I grew up in California. I was raised by my stepfather and mother. I grew up in a home of drugs and alcohol, lots of emotional and physical abuse. By the time I was, I think, 8 years old, 7 years old, nine, somewhere around there, I'd been molested by a neighborhood boy, and his father was friends with my father. So it was not something I could talk about. My dad was that hardcore Marine, hard worker, provided for the family, but he was that like tough, nothing bothered him. He's not the cry kind of guy. So that's something I buried for a really long time. Shortly after that, I got involved in pornography myself at a very young age, and my innocence was taken from me pretty young. By the time I was 14 or 15 years old, I started becoming very sexual with women, and I started drinking about the same time. And when I jumped into drinking, it was really to have fun. But my very first experience with drinking, I was with the girl I was dating at the time, which is about 14 or 15 years old. And her dad's best friend was watching us. And he's the one that bought us alcohol. He got us drunk. A lot of stuff happened that night. He totally took advantage of that situation. He took advantage of two kids getting drunk for the first time. And along with the alcohol and suppressing a lot of my own troubles through the drugs and alcohol. Because shortly after that, I got introduced to marijuana, then acid, then shrooms, which eventually became ecstasy and cocaine. And so at a very young age, I started consuming all these drugs. I had a very hard time staying in a healthy relationship due to all the things that I saw as a kid, the way that my mom and my dad went at it all the time, the cops showing up at the house, my issues with authority because of that. I struggled with my dad and his authoritative personality, his Marine type personality, and just watching him interact with police or the authorities himself. And so I started to adapt all that kind of stuff. By the time I was in my 20s, I was completely drugged out and I was a full blown drunk, alcoholic, whatever you want to call it. I was really heavy into the drugs. And the truth is, I don't really remember my 20s that much, Chris. It's just there was a lot of blackouts, there was a lot of fights, there was a lot of times getting arrested and in trouble. By the time I was 28, I had met a young lady. She was a very troubled young lady, but I chose to jump into that relationship anyway. And in that relationship, at some point, she falsely accused me of rape and attempted murder, which led me to jump headfirst out of a third story loft when in attempt to take my own life. My goal was to break my neck and kill myself, but I survived the fall. I struggled with suicide my whole life. It was something that I thought about deeply all the time. And this situation I call it like the perfect storm of events. Everything just lined up that night when it led to me jumping out of that window. Obviously, I survived the fall, but I ended up severing my spine, went to the hospital, and they told me that I would probably never walk again. In the event that I did, I would be medicated, living off a disability. And that information, the living off a disability, medicated, never working out again, that's information that was given to me in like a 2 or 3 week time span. But I had all this stuff piled on top of me about really never living a functional life. And I was laying in the hospital about to battle some rape and murder charges, trying to fight a fight for something I didn't do. So here I am sitting in the hospital facing this, facing the possibility of never walking again, because that was a diagnosis that you may never walk again, and confronting prison, laying in a hospital bed. And when I was in that hospital bed, I was shackled to the bed. They had 24-hour surveillance on me because apparently I was a flight risk, which, man, I couldn't even pee for myself. I had a catheter, a back brace, external fixator, a cast on one arm, tubes coming out of my neck to feed me pain medication. Like, I wasn't going anywhere. But in the midst of all that, something came over me, and I heard this still powerful voice tell me that the charges would be dropped, the bills would be paid, and I would walk again. And shortly after that, one of the officers that was watching me on his shift told me that the cops were going to drop the charges on me. Within a week after that, I had another surgery and I was able to walk again. And at the end of it all, $2 million worth of medical bills, I've never had to pay anything. So what I've done since then is I've had to get off the drugs. I had to get off the alcohol. I had to address all my childhood experiences. I had to forgive a lot of people. And because I felt like I know that I took a lot from this world. I stole a lot. I abused a lot of people. I was in a survival mode most of my life. And I know that. And I forgive myself for that. I didn't mean to hurt a lot of people in my process. I was a hurt person hurting other people. But what I needed to do now is find ways to give back. And we're going to fast forward to what I do today, which I take no pain medication. I'm not disabled. I clear on all charges, but now I'm an addiction recovery coach. I was heavily into the drugs and alcohol for many years. And so now I'm a certified recovery addiction coach or addiction recovery coach. I'm also a health and fitness coach. And if you were to see my x-rays, and anyone that goes to robdeckerspeaks.com, or you hit me up and I'm sure Chris will give you all the information, but you'll be able to see my x-rays. It's absolutely insane how much hardware I actually have in my body. And for me to be able to go out and train the way that I do and play sports at a very high level at almost 44 years old with the amount of hardware, it's just a miracle within itself. And I do that. And I also work with a lot of struggling men, young men, like I work with the youth and I work with men. I got kids anywhere from 12 years old to men in their 50s that I just work with, whether it be spiritually. I'm a man of faith. Jesus is my guy, he's my God. And if that's something that people want in their life and they want to share that, and I'll share it. If people need some inspiration and encouragement from all the things that I've come out of, and I'm right there for you. Addiction recovery, like I try to help people identify what led to that behavior. So for me, I always use drugs and alcohol as a modality to self-medicate. And when I was able to relieve the trauma that led up to that behavior, all the temptations went away. I didn't need to medicate anymore. And I know there's going to be different perspectives on recovery and addiction, but the camp that I come out of is I truly believe that if you heal from the childhood traumas and your experiences, you can have freedom from addiction. But that's the camp I'm in. There will be many different perspectives on that, but that's my perspective. And so
Nice, man.
that's how I give
Amazing.
back. Yeah. And I run 2 recovery softball teams because mental health is very important to me. I'm trying to bring that into our community where it's okay to talk about mental health. I have players that have attempted suicide. I have players whose family members killed themselves. I have guys that are in drug and alcohol programs. At least they're deep into it. It's hard to get the new guy that's fresh to recovery to come play for your team because you never know what to expect. We're trying to bring mental health and recovery to me is an umbrella, I don't know, term. Yeah, the word's term.
No, that sounds amazing, man, like, all those things that you're doing, man. I wanna dial it back right to the beginning almost about your childhood traumas, because 'cause I've had
Yeah,
similar experiences with a friend of the family and stuff like that, and I suppressed those feelings for many years. I had a similar, experience to you, and I didn't know how to talk about it at all, so it led me down a really spiraled path. Now, what was it for you? Why did you hold those feelings, and was it because it
shame,
was a good family friend too?
shame, embarrassment. Going back to my dad, he was just that tough dude, man. And it was another boy. It was another boy that came at me. It was another boy that did this to me. And so that is pretty unfamiliar and uncomfortable. And I used to sneak around in my parents' house all the time, Chris. And I would find my dad's porn stash. And my dad was a player, man. He cheated on my mom a few times. But there was this heavy emphasis on women, and I would go and steal my dad's porn, and even looking at all that stuff, if I were to ever get caught, you would be so embarrassed. And porn was one of those things that kind of carried me through, and unfortunately, it ruined a lot of my relationships. Not necessarily that I was watching it in front of anybody because it was more of a secret to me, but the fact that my intimacy levels were connected to what I saw through pornography. And that was years. And I thought that was normal behavior, just like I thought drinking was normal behavior and using because that's the environment that I grew up in. And my dad was a tough guy, and I had to put on a certain image for him. And he had his own definition of what a man was. And not to say my dad wasn't a man, the guy, he provided for me. I love my dad. He lost his life to drugs and alcohol. He couldn't kick those demons, man. He had his own past. And, but I think I just became like him. I became like my dad.
So if you could read one person's mind today, who would it be and why?
Ah, man, I don't know whose mind I would read. The thing is, do I really wanna know everyone's secrets? Do I wanna know all their demons? Do I wanna know all their thoughts? I think we all
Maybe I'll rephrase that. If we
do.
could if you could tap into someone's mind for the goodness in them, who would it be and why?
That's Jesus, man, ultimately. But I don't know. I'm very careful about trying to read God's mind. That's a really tough question, Chris, because of my relationship with God. I would love to have greater wisdom and greater knowledge and greater peace and greater love. I want to exceed anything and everything that I've ever been taught because I want to be that for myself and for my family and for other people because I truly want to lead and help and heal. Help people heal, man.
And what is it about wisdom that you really enjoy getting into?
It helps mold your decision. I think that with great wisdom, it's kind of like you already have the answer. You know exactly what you should be doing. And wisdom pushes the emotional decisions out of the way because with wisdom, there's it's not based off emotion at all. It's not based off of reaction. It's a response. And that's why wisdom is very important because you can alter a situation based on how something comes out of your mouth. You can change that and you can improve a situation. And even with wisdom, like maybe sometimes not saying something is the best thing you could possibly do, even if you are completely right in your thought. That wisdom provides you that space of, hey, maybe I shouldn't. I just, there's this individual just wants to argue, or this is what they're trying to do, and this is what they're right. Wisdom tells you, you know who this is.
Yeah, you got to pick and choose your battles in life today.
Yeah.
Because if you don't, pick them properly, you could be going down, led astray down the wrong path. You don't want to go back down either. So
Well,
you
life's all
really got to
about
pick and choose
choices,
your battles.
right? I
Exactly.
mean,
Choices and decisions.
and the one thing that I think a lot of times when you're in recovery or coming out of recovery or wherever you are in this realm of self improvement, I think taking ownership for the decisions that you make and for the ones that you have made. I think a lot of times, a lot of people just, they don't want to own it. They don't want to own their own stuff. Unfortunately, what I see, especially in this day and age, is a lot of blaming and finger pointing instead of taking a look at self and saying, hey, what could I have done different? How can I approach this situation? Or even if I was expressing earlier about, I understand that I was in survival mode most of my life, but I still made decisions toward people. So I still decided to drink and use and sleep with a lot of women. And I still chose to jump out of a window, even though that doesn't take great wisdom to do. But I still own those choices. Like those were my choices. I own them because I'm the one that said, hey, I'm going to do that and I can live with. So what are we going to do different now? Because the moment you take ownership of choices, now you are setting yourself up to make better choices, right?
100%, man. It's all about setting yourself up to be 1% better than the day before, I find, because you can't worry about what happened yesterday because yesterday's gone. Tomorrow hasn't come. We got to live in the present moment and just worry about what's going on in front of you at that moment in time. Don't worry about this, that, and everything else. Let's take
Yeah.
care of one thing at a time. Take care of your own side of the street so you can make it across the street.
I think that's a great point. I think so. As a guy who suffered from depression and anxiety heavily, not living in the moment is what led to a lot of my anxiety and my depression. So in my depression, I was thinking about all the things that have happened to me in my life. In my anxious moments, I was projecting things that haven't happened yet.
Yeah, the
And
what ifs.
yeah. So in both of those situations, the one thing I'm really not doing is just living in this God given moment that I have right now with the breath that I have right now. But instead, I'm sitting there and the mind is a battle zone, man. It truly is. Especially I've been
Oh, I have fights with Jekyll and Hyde every day some days up there, man. There's Jekylls on one shoulder, Hyde's on the other, and sometimes you just gotta keep those blinders on and keep going forward, though.
Yeah, and it's good just to breathe and just to remind yourself, like, "God, I just need to be here and this is all I need to be." But unfortunately, I think that, especially growing up the way I grew up, there's certain things that developed in my brain. And so it was always fight or flight and survival mode. And I even would say this, and I'm not a psychotherapist, but I would say this about my ADD is that I believe that based on my childhood and what was presented to me and the things that I had to live with and around, I developed certain neural pathways and ways to deal with stuff as my brain is developing. And that kind of contributed to my ADHD or whatever. Was my brain trying to find ways to protect myself from the chaos that I was exposed to. I would have to say. At one time, I was diagnosed with being bipolar, and the last thing that they say you should do when you're bipolar is drink alcohol. Anyone with bipolar disorder should not drink alcohol. And again, I think there was just a lot of unresolved trauma because if someone were to break me down today, they wouldn't say, hey, you have any form of any kind of bipolar disorder. And I think with a lot of that resolved trauma, other things resolve themselves. But again, this is not a medical situation. I'm talking about my own personal experiences and my own thoughts based on me and what I've lived through and what I see today.
Exactly. We are not medical professionals of it all, and I like to make that clear every time,
Yeah.
this is our own personal
Yes.
experiences, sharing from the heart, things that we've gone through or my guests have gone through. Just wanna make that clear, everyone.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
So who would you love to collaborate with, and what would you collaborate on with them, Rob?
Oh, who would I love to collaborate with? That is such a good question. Who would you like to?
Come on, someone else than Jesus.
No, it's fair enough. I'm like, yeah, I'd like to collaborate. Yeah, hey, bro, I've read what happened to every guy that hung out with Jesus, man, and I'm just saying, I'm not ready to go. I'm not ready to go. I'm ready to get burned by the stake, hung upside down, or beheaded. You
Maybe
know?
those guys aren't good guys to collaborate with.
Man, that is such a great who I really liked. He's been gone for a while. I like Zig Ziglar. He was pretty cool, man. I really
Nice.
like
Why would you collaborate with him?
oh man, he was just you could tell he just really loved and cared about people, man. I believe that the reason he was able to get to the level of success that
And
he was
who's
at.
Zig Ziglar for the people that don't know?
Oh man, he
Explain.
was just this amazing motivational speaker. He just really loved people. You know who Zig is, Chris? I would hope. No, maybe.
I've heard of him, but
Okay,
that's why yeah.
okay. He's
I don't
definitely.
know everyone like I used to tell every
It's crazy. Do you remember someone I admired growing up in some way? outside of this now is you remember Tupac Shakur.
One of my favorite, if not my favorite. I still listen to him today, man.
So yeah, I've cleaned up most all the that kind of music out of my life, but Tupac is still my guy. And when I need a good workout, it's Tupac. I
There's more to him though. Like now we're on that topic. There was way more to him than just his lyrics, man. He was like
yes.
such a true, like genuine man, and that poetry was there. It brings me back. If you want to throw him, imagine him, like imagine a collaboration with him and Jim Morrison from the
Oh,
Doors.
wow.
Like
They were didn't they both die at 25 or something like that? Isn't that
all
like a thing?
they're all part of the 27
The
Club.
20 is it 27 Club? Yeah, I think
So,
Pac was 25, but there's a 27
yeah,
Club. But the thing I loved about Pac growing up is that he was this revolutionary type guy, and I could resonate in his lyrics. I could resonate in his poetry, even though I wasn't a young black male. I could hear the pain and the struggle, and I can also hear the conflict. One minute it's like, "F you, I'm gonna murder your whole crew, and you're a bunch of punks," right? Hit 'em up, probably the greatest trash talking song of all time, bro. Like hands down. But the Dear Mamas and the Brendas and
that was one of my favorite. That is my all-time favorite song, "Dear
Dear
Mama,"
Mama.
man. Like
Yes,
it like there. If you just listen to that like deeply, the story that he's actually telling you,
yes.
oh my God.
And Dear Mama is actually a song I've dedicated to my mom. And my mom, we've talked when she passes, like that's the song that we're going to play at her funeral. I can relate to that song a lot. And he actually has a great rendition. If you get to hear the version with him and Anthony Hamilton, man, you got to check out that version of
Check
that,
that one.
bro. It is. So Tupac, I was 18 years old when he died. He died in 1996. I was just right out of high school. And man, that was the first celebrity that I actually cried about. It was Tupac, and then it was Kobe Bryant. There's a pretty big gap, but Tupac, he just left this it was just this impression on my heart, man. I think that if he would have aged and got older and more mature, he was a powerful individual. He had the capabilities of a Martin Luther King Jr. He had that he was just that, but he was so young. He was so young, and so he was conflicted, and going back to his conflicted side, like, you would see this loving, caring side of him, and then you'd see the flipped out, "Don't mess with me" side of him, and I could relate heavily because we're all seeking that love and affection and appreciation and connection and authenticity, which you heard in his music, but at the same time is like you heard the brokenness, the shame, the just the conflict that would come up against him. And a lot of it was just due to how he was raised and then a lot to his age as well. Cause if you really think about it, I'm almost 44. Well, the dude died at 25. What did I really know at 25?
I didn't know much, man. I was still a child in a
Right.
25-year-old's body.
Yeah, I get it, man. And so I guess my 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 long answer is Tupac, if he was still here, would be my guy to sit down and pick his brain and talk to him. Because I think that today, at what he would have been, what, 52 now or something like that. I think that who Tupac would be today would be such an amazing individual to connect with. I'm sorry he's not living, Chris, but that's what I got, bro.
No, no, another guy that I would love to pick his brain and collaborate with, obviously, he just passed during the pandemic and stuff like that, but would be
DMX.
DMX.
So really,
That was another, like, individual that, like, he struggled, man, and he, like, came from the trenches, literally, like,
yes,
the where he how he had to survive if you knew a little bit about his story, and it's just
I did.
amazing to see where he come from and
So
the things he had gone through, that he went through being molested as
yeah,
well and those types of things, man, and
yeah.
it explains a lot of why he was the way he was.
Well, it's why a lot of times you sleep around. I used to sleep around because you're dealing with some issues, trust me. But DMX, I was mentioning my recovery softball teams. So if you actually look at the logo, it's the Rough Riders logo. So I created the team in honor of DMX because it's a recovery team and DMX struggled with drugs and alcohol big time, bro. And so, yeah, if you get a chance, the audience, if you get a chance, like my recovery rebels, RR, Rough Riders, recovery rebels, it's all really a tribute to DMX. So,
Nice, man, that's amazing, and it's a nice tribute as well.
much love to you, Chris, for that one. DMX is a great call. Unfortunately, we admire these people after they pass a little bit more than when they were here. But
Yeah,
yeah,
no, it's 100%, and a couple people who are true good friends, and all of a sudden, he had all these fans and stuff after he died, but where and they said it, man, like, where were all these people for him when he needed them the most? No one
yeah,
was around, though, but everyone wanted to be around when the guy's dead.
Yeah, I think that's human nature sometimes. And trust me,
A little ass backwards, if you ask me.
well, dude, I live in the US of A, bro. Everything is like that right now. So I don't know how you're rolling in Canada right now, my dude, but yeah, we're pretty backwards right now. That's human nature. We do everything
No,
so backwards all the time, man. It's just but I'll say this about people not showing up for DMX. As someone that works with people in recovery and addicts, a sober individual is their authentic true self, right? But once you get them in any form of intoxication, they just become a different person. And I'll share this crazy little truth with you. The word alcohol comes from the Arabic word al-kul, which means flesh eating spirit. Think about that, flesh eating spirit. Pharmacy comes from the word pharmakia in Greek. Pharmakia means witchcraft or sorcery. So think about shoving alcohol and drugs into your body and what you're actually doing. It's like you're inviting another spirit into your spirit. And so you're not just dealing with this one individual. There's something much greater going on when they're consumed and they're intoxicated, bro. And those people can be very hard to deal with. I know that in the midst of my junk and being loaded, probably wasn't the easiest guy to get along with. I know that when I was sober, people loved me and they wanted to be around me. But after a while of being intoxicated, people were just like, dude, we don't even know what to expect from it. You know?
and I was the same way too, man. Like, you wouldn't know what to expect, you wouldn't know where we'd end up.
Yeah.
You wouldn't know anything. I was just a loose cannon waiting to happen, and even
Yeah.
in early recovery, I was the same way. I had to sort of literally rewire my brain and how to live again,
That's what you do,
basically.
right? You're
Yeah,
because
exactly.
you have wired yourself or you have been programmed to function a certain way. And now not only do you have to get rid of the old way, you have to create new ways on top of getting it's a lot of work. Us being in recovery or recovered, it's a lot of work because you're doing two things at once. I'm trying to get this behind me, but I'm also trying to learn new skill sets. And sometimes it doesn't work well for people. I have two friends very close to me who just relapsed, man. And it's so hard to watch because what happens is that they stop taking care of themselves. They let the old stuff come back. They stop moving forward. They stop getting support. They stop doing their homework, whatever that looks like, whatever modality of recovery you choose. And you think you got it. I can handle this. Well, obviously you can't, right? And so I've seen a lot of my friends relapse, and being a drug addict, alcoholic is hard. Becoming a new man is hard, but just being the same is really hard too. And so you got to pick your hard.
100%, man, 100%. That's very well said for sure. So how do you overcome the thoughts of people who are against?
I take that as an honor and a privilege that people would actually be against me. I'm flattered by that. I feel, especially where I'm at in my life right now, when you're doing really well in life and it's just going, you're gonna get your haters, bro. It's just gonna happen. And that's okay because you can use them as fuel. I still smile at them. I'll still love on them because I want the same for them. I want you to not have to hate, right? What I believe is that everyone is capable of doing amazing things. Success looks different for everybody, man. And you always wish the best on them or for them. And it's just part of it. And a lot of times it's just a distraction. When people come along hating, it's just a distraction. It's just a way to get you off course and unfocused. And I just roll with it, man. And sometimes it gets hard. I'm not going to lie. I'm not going to say it's easy to ignore all the time, but it happens. And you know that you're doing something when it shows up. Whenever I cruised in life and I never really had anything like coming at me, I wasn't really doing much with my life anyway. I wasn't a threat to nobody. I think unfortunately, a lot of times people look at you as a threat because they're comparing themselves to you when they just need to focus on themselves, man. And I'm guilty. I know that in my addictions, and I would do some hating on my own. And it was only because I wasn't happy with myself. And so that you have to understand that haters, they're just not happy with themselves because we don't need to hate on anybody. When you love yourself, you love other people, man. When you have hate for yourself in your heart, you're hating on other people. And that's just the way it is. And so
And
if
when all
anyone's
those other
listening,
people are hating too,
Huh?
They're when the people that are hating on you as well, that's their insecurities and their
Yeah.
own problems,
Yeah.
showing through and bleeding out to you and out
Yeah.
to other people around them.
100%, man. And you could, bro, trust me. And even a guy that goes to church and our foundational belief system is love God, love yourself, love your neighbor. Bro, most people can't even nail those simple requests. Like, you know what I'm saying? Like, man, talk about, you know, hate will come from your own community and the rules are pretty simple, right? Those characteristics are pretty easy. Not always they're simple, not always easy to apply, but they're simple, right?
100%, man. If you can't do any of those 4 simple things in life, man,
Yeah, you can be pretty challenged. I don't want to hear you
it
come
can
preach.
be.
I don't want to hear you come preaching at me and tell me everything I'm doing wrong when you can't even get the foundational stuff. It's like I'm a fitness coach, man. I don't want to see all this crazy stuff you can do in the gym if you can't even do a squat correct. You know what I'm saying? If you can't do a foundational movement properly, I don't care about all the other stuff. You're only going to hurt yourself. That's it.
Exactly. Get the foundations. It always starts with a foundation,
Yeah,
whether it's a house, building something, building yourself from the ground up, building a business from the ground up, those
yeah.
types of things. It all starts with the foundation at the bottom. You don't start at the top and work your way down.
I live in America. You do. You start from the top and you work your way down. That's what we do here, right?
Alright.
Right.
Don't start at the bottom, work your way up.
Right, no, no. I'm grateful because I run my own gym. I run it from my home. Like, I've been able to start a lot of stuff from scratch my own way and make my own mistakes and learn. And it's pretty cool stuff. And I think that we should all learn from the ground. We really should. I think, unfortunately, we live in this feel good culture and instant gratification culture. And everyone wants to be
Fake
flying.
persona culture,
You
the
know?
list goes on.
Oh, yeah. But I think people want to fly before they've even learned how to.
Social media can be a bitch some days with all that.
Oh, bro. Well, yeah, you have to know how to. So we talk about wisdom. Let's go back to our wisdom conversation. You have to use wisdom with social media. True, bro. True story. So one of my buddies today posted a fitness maneuver, and so I'm analyzing it and I'm sharing with him like, "Hey, dude, you can sharpen up this, sharpen up that." So we're talking. He goes, "Yeah, you know how many takes I did?" And if you think about it, that's social media. Someone can do something incorrectly 100 times and they get it the 101st, and that's what they're showing the audience. How many times on social media you see the filters and the angles and the lighting? And it's very, social media can be very deceptive. And when I use it, like I try to put my heart out on, I do a lot of really cool things in this life. And I try not to come off as a guy that's bragging. I am sharing because I believe that we're all capable of this. But I also love to share my struggles and be like, dude, this is what I've been dealing with. And dude, I really have a pride issue right now. And because it's real, it's human, it's authentic. And I think a lot of people are just afraid to show their real self, and it's unfortunate, and that's what social media has created, this, like, false identity, and it's just so sad, man.
I'm guilty as charged for lots of those things too, but when I really started thinking about it, it's when I get called out sometimes by my fiance, "Hey, Chris, I think you went a little far with your sharing there. I think that was a little vain." The
But that's
arrogance a
all.
little bit, and I go back and read it, and then,
Yeah,
if I would've just changed up or left out a couple things, it
yeah,
would've been good.
yeah,
But I I had to be that arrogant or the way I said it, you know what I mean? If I'm, for example, I post not too long ago, talking about manifesting this, manifesting that.
yeah.
She's like, "Chris, that comes up very arrogant. You and I can talk about that in private, but we don't need to be sharing about."
Well, it's tough because, someone may take it that way and someone may not, and
When I went back and reread it, I was like, "I really get your point, and
yeah.
I really, truly am grateful for calling me out on my bullshit."
Yeah, we definitely have voices of reason in our life. My wife like totally checks me all the time. It's a learning experience. And you're using, and so you can call yourself out now for it and you understand that you do it. And I still put crap up in my post too. We're at a place where now we look deeper into it and we make our adjustments. But man, some people just use it and just vomit all over it, man. And that's what they use it for. They use it for vomit, man. And there's no growth in that. If we're using it and we're going back and we're looking at some of the stuff and analyzing it, and because we're in a place of growth and we're going to make our mistakes, we're going to fall on our face, we're going to say things we shouldn't say, man. Good thing we can take it off of social media. but we can't really take it back in real life face to face. Hopefully, a lot of what we do on social media helps configure the way that we deal with people in front of us as well.
And if we don't catch these things, our kids are in for a rude awakening, the people that are coming up behind us too, or our young ones. So
100.
I'd rather pave the way properly for them.
And we make the mistakes while they're young. And I have a 5-year-old and a 2-year-old. And my whole thing is, what kind of image am I really trying to portray? Because at the end of the day, my kids may be able to go back and look at my social media stuff. I don't know. But what kind of leader am I trying to be in my home? And unfortunately, some of the stuff that I've seen with parents that have young kids, man, I don't know. That's just not stuff that I'd want to throw out to my kids. I want to raise them different. Because of how hard my childhood was, I want to see them raised a little bit different. I want to participate in that. I tell people all the time that my ceiling in this life is going to be their dance floor. That's their starting point. Like whatever I can create and build now, character, business, whatever it is, man, relationships, like my kids will just have a better starting place. I don't want them to have to start so low like I did. I appreciate my life experiences. They were rough ones. They allow me to help others. Now I get to do a lot of great things and share and help. But I want my kids to find their own path and not to have a lot of the same sufferings that I had.
Oh, and I like to hear that, man. That's amazing. So do you have any resentments towards anyone tied up in your sobriety journey? And how are you working on letting all those go?
Resentments. That's a good question, Chris. I really, for a long time, struggled with my mother in law. My mother in law is AA, and that's a modality of recovery, and I respect that. And if people find sobriety, and that's great. For me, I had a pretty strong foundation in my Christianity. And when it came to that time to stop drinking, my mother in law, being a believer, but also like at the time, 25 years AA, I was hoping she would just take a different approach with me. And initially, I started going to those meetings, and there was just a lot of stuff that didn't line up for me. And I just kind of felt like it kept getting pushed on me, which created resentment. As far as people in AA, I don't, but I think that my resentment was really toward that situation and that connection and that relationship. I know a lot of people that have walked out of the Christian church and they associate God with the way that people treated them in the church. And so a lot of my resentment toward that came from this constant push for me to be a part of that program when I found my own way of sobriety. Because once the bottle went down for me, I've never even had a temptation. This is God's honest truth, Chris. I've never went back to the bottle. I'll give you the quick story. 4 years after I broke my back, I was still struggling with alcohol. I was working again. I was working out. All this, man, life was good, but I was still hitting the bottle and I was using it as a form of medication because I wasn't wanting to deal with my feelings, the pressures of my job, like all this stuff was getting to me. And I ended up crashing my wife or my girlfriend's car at the time. And what I realized when I ran from the scene of the crime and I hid under the house, what I realized is that I really had a good life up to this point and I was throwing it away for the alcohol. And because I was unwilling to let certain things go and I was using the alcohol to medicate, I was using the drugs to medicate. And in that moment, I just had this moment where I just was given this clarity of God, I haven't been giving everything over to you and I give it to you. I just ask that you get me out of this situation. This was a really bad situation. I crashed my girlfriend's car. I'm working. I have this girl. Like my life is so great, man, and I'm throwing it all away for the alcohol. And I had this moment that was just like, what am I doing? I'm just such a dumbass. And in that moment, the desire for alcohol left me. And so for the first few months, I kept getting pressured to get into this group, and I attended, but my belief system didn't line up with their belief system. And so it created resentment toward the program. And again, if that's someone's program and that's your recovery, man, I'm just glad that you're taking the right steps to get right. For me, it just wasn't for me. And so I started to build resentment to my mother-in-law for into the program for that. But
And I feel you there about because I was, part of the 12-step program for quite some time too.
yeah,
But it was more the way it was pushed upon, "You
yeah,
don't go here, you're not in recovery,"
yeah,
and blah, 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 and
yeah,
that type of stuff. And I still have tons of friends that are still in it, but,
yeah,
and they know my reasoning why I'm not there.
yeah,
and that's my personal reasons, and I'm entitled to it. I used to love drinking beer. I'll be honest, I drink non-alcoholic beer still. That's why I love the taste of beer, but I'm able to partake without getting I'm the DD now.
Yeah.
I love making sure everyone gets home sober, but I also love a good cold non-alcoholic beer, especially in the summertime. And lots of people didn't like that. So lots of people stopped
Well,
talking to me because of that. But at the end of the day, those are the haters that really fueled me, like we talked about
yeah,
earlier.
to me, honestly, to me, that's like religion, right? That group can be quite religious. I truly believe that it is a religion. It has doctrine, it has literature, it has a pastor and a preacher, it has a gathering spot, like it has a congregation, right? It's a form of religion. And unfortunately, just like the church, it can become very cliquish and judgmental. And Chris, like I was accused of white knuckling it and being a dry drunk. And here's the thing, what happened under that house was real, and I got rid of the temptation to drink. And just because I haven't done it your way, like, now you're shaming me for not doing it your way. And I would still go to those meetings and I would go to celebrate other people's birthdays because I still love the people that are in those groups. But when I wasn't willing to call myself what they're willing to call themselves, for me, Chris, I'm not going to identify in being an alcoholic. To me, that's an identity. And this is my
And
personal perspective.
and I love that you say that because thank God, and you're not the only one we've talked about this on the show a
Yeah.
long time ago with someone else,
Yeah.
and I feel the same thing, like, why am I identifying as an alcoholic or an
Correct.
addict?
Correct.
Because that's not who Chris is, that's not who Rob is today. It's like my fiance said to me before too, Chris, you stop really talking about and romanticizing about your past, whether it's doing
Right.
drugs and stuff like that, or the way I talk about it, and I have to catch myself still to this day, and it brings you back to and I was like, "No, you know what? You're right. You can't worry because that's not who you are today. That's not who
Right.
your past isn't who you are today. Yes,
Correct.
you gotta remember where you came from, but, you don't always have to go back to there and go back to talking about those stories about your past and stuff like that, because that's not who Chris is. And Chris isn't an addict or an alcoholic.
Correct.
I'm just
Yeah.
being honest.
No,
That's the way I look at
I
it,
love
and
that.
I don't knock those people
No.
that go to AA, NA, 12-step groups. I don't care. I'll talk about it on this podcast because it's the freedom of speech. I don't care what country we're in.
Yeah.
And that's the way I look at it, though. I just felt that it was pushed on, and when you get pushed on it, and you're not in recovery if you're not is
You're not one of us. You're not in But here's the thing. I would sit into these groups and there'd be guys 5, 10,
sorry,
15
I had to
years.
get really passionate there.
I would these guys would be like 5 years, 10 years, 15 years deep in their sobriety, and they'd be like, "Yo, if I didn't make it today, I'd be drinking." Like, bro, well, drinking ain't your problem. You have something else that's much deeper that you're struggling with that you need to resolve. There's something else going on there because here's the thing. The alcohol's been gone out of your system, but also constantly calling yourself an alcoholic, you're branding yourself, right? And you're really led to believe that's who you are. When my dad used to say, "You're a piece of crap," or "You're not going to amount to anything," and you hear it enough times, you believe that's who you are. And so you don't want to keep labeling yourself. I think Bruce Lee said something along those lines about be careful of the things that you say. And even the scriptures say the tongue brings life and death. Like the things that you say bring life and death onto yourself. And I don't find anything positive about that label, and it's so far behind me now. And like you, I talk about my past too, but it's also to help people like to relate to things that they've been through. And sometimes you have to and another struggle I had was sometimes listening to some of these stories, and it's almost like they were glorifying the drug or alcohol abuse, like almost bragging about some of the stuff that you did. Like, I don't know if this is what we should be doing here. But again, this didn't turn into a bash AA session, but
No, and I'm not trying to bash them, that's
yeah,
just my personal thoughts that like, today, this is my recovery, doing this
yeah,
podcast, getting
it
to
helps others.
chat with so many other people, so many other walks of life, whether it's an eating disorder,
Yeah.
someone that's was doing a life bit in jail, not even for an alcohol or drug related crime, whatever it was. I just find joy and happiness in just chatting with others and getting to know others for who they actually are from the core.
And that's dude, and I'm like that. I'm just like that. I just love people, man. And I think that what you and I do is a service. In that group, you're called to serve. And I believe in service and I believe in serving. I believe in helping others. I believe that once you get to a place of sobriety, because I consider myself recovered, I don't really consider myself in recovery at this point. I'm recovered from all that other stuff. But now it's my responsibility as a human being to help guide other humans into a healthier way of living. So now I'm in this big service realm where it's how many people can I bring with me to the mountaintop? You know what I'm saying? How can I show them through my experiences and my knowledge and my education and my passion and love? Like, how can I bring them along and show them that there's a better way? And I think it just gets to that place. And now you have a platform where you can do the exact same thing. You can use what you have right now all over the United States, all over the world. People can listen to you all over the place, and you can change someone's life with one podcast, man.
No, and I thank you for saying that, man. I appreciate that. Those are very kind words, and I'm glad you pointed that out. And we're here to help everyone. And if you are struggling out there, please reach out.
Yes.
Don't be afraid to hit those DMs up or any of that stuff. Get vulnerable. I'm here to listen. Rob, I'm sure is here to listen
Absolutely.
and all those things. He does remember to show up most times, guys.
It's okay. See, so what happened was, see what happened was, I was a little irresponsible. All right, I will say this though. Back to if anyone wants to find me on Facebook, Rob Decker, Instagram, Decker_Rob. You can find me at robdeckerspeaks.com. Like I'm really good at answering emails. I'm very good at answering phone calls and text messages. If you are going through some things, and don't be afraid. Sometimes it's actually easier to talk to a stranger than it is to a family member, someone that you know, because you're like, I don't even know this guy. I've been able to have a lot of amazing conversations and guide people in the right direction. And I mentor people all over the United States, and I just want to help people. So if you're in a tough place and you just need some light, you just need some understanding, you just need an ear, you need some advice, I'll share with you what worked for me. I'd be happy to do that. I really, I do it all the time. Sometimes I do it too much. When you like helping people, consume yourself with it.
Thank you again for coming on the show today, Rob. Man, it was truly a great time chatting with you. And if there's anything I could take away from today, man, it's all about wisdom, making those proper choices, those positive choices, and choosing your words wisely
Yeah.
and just going through life with wisdom. So thanks again for coming on the show today. Truly appreciate you taking the time out of your day to do, man. And I hope you have an amazing rest of your day.
Thanks for giving me a second chance, Chris.
No worries, man. No worries at all, man. There's always second chances in this life.
Thanks, brother. I appreciate you,
Third
man.
too if you need it.
Uh,
All right, well, take care, and I hope you have a great rest of your day, Rob, man.
all right, brother. Take care, bro.